Hey everybody. Sorry for not uploading for a little while, but long story short, the charges were dropped. Well, what a year. We had some highs, we had some lows, sometimes even involving the same thing. But what a good year for watching anime. One Piece broke episode 1000, smug anime waifus took the spotlight, and anime originals like Vivi and Odd Taxi were snubbed at first but ended up finding an audience by the end. And it just so happened that 2021 was the year that I found myself going back and watching a lot more anime than I have in a long time. Between watching on Discord with some friends and going over to a close circle of friends' house during these times and watching in person, I figured, hey, you know what? Maybe it's a good year to give some recommendations to viewers at home, like you. So, what anime watched in 2021 am I going to recommend? Though there probably are some newer series that released in 2021 I could recommend or talk about, the reality is that I actually found myself going back and rewatching a lot of older series, OVAs, and movies with people. So instead of actually talking about shows from 2021, I'm going to pick some of the anime that I have watched or rewatched in 2021 to recommend instead. Do you like retro anime OVAs and movies from the boom of the 80s? Do you like Ghost in the Shell? Well, lucky for you, I have an anime for you from the creative mind behind Ghost in the Shell.
Oh no, 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 no. You misunderstood.
Black Magic M66 by Mazume Shuro, the original creator and mangaka of Ghost in the Shell, in his first and only anime production role, outside of, say, like consultation or anything like that, as well as director Hiroyuki Kitakubo, working together on this short movie at a hair over 47 minutes if you include the credits at the end. Black Magic is a short little sci fi rom featuring rogue battle androids, action and conspiracy, and a tomboy journalist main character named Sybil, who's naked in the first scenes, introducing her because 80s OVA. The story and plot revolve around how a pair of top secret battle androids have gone missing while being transported due to an attack on the transports that are carrying them, and they get loose from their stasis containers. These androids, who were supposed to have no programming load into them as they were being transported, well, oops, accidentally did, and it turns out that programming is to hunt down and kill Ferris, granddaughter of Swirly Glasses Professor Matthews, who helped create the androids in the first place. Sybil, on the other hand, is in her apartment and has some sort of Stingray phone tapping device or some kind of wiretap on a military band and learns about this down transport and heads out with her cameraman Leaky to get the scoop on what's going on, only then to be captured by the military. And then everything changed when the androids attacked, and they both end up escaping, only for Sybil to find out that they're actually programmed to hunt down Ferris, and then a race against both time and forced survival begins. This is a fun little anime. It has some good action set pieces, some nice character, tech, and mechanical designs, and that sort of 80s anime futurism that we've come to see and enjoy over the years. Mainly some of the backdrops and vehicles definitely having some Shiro influence from his other projects such as Dominion. It also probably has some of my favorite animated sequences that I saw years ago, and for some reason they still stick with me, with android M6402 circling both Ferris and Sybil in an elevator. There's two different shots, and the perspective shifts on them I find are very, very cool, and again, it stuck with me for years. It's good stuff. If any of this sounds interesting, I would highly recommend checking it out. It's available both subs and an English dub, and I'm pretty sure it's on High Dive, and there's other alternatives always out there. Also, I'm pretty confident that this has been out of print in North America for a very long while. Made in Japan were the last ones to license it out on an official DVD and give it a release. And as of writing, it goes for $149 Canadian loose. So it's definitely one of those movies I would love to see get a Blu ray release. Dropping a hint, made in Japan. Or if the license has lapsed, I'm giving a little bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to Discotech or Anamigo. Would love to see this movie get a brand new release, especially where Appleseed just got a brand new Blu-ray release and it looks absolutely fantastic, especially when you compare it to the old DVD release that I still have sitting on a shelf. It's good stuff. Would recommend. On to the next one. Steins Gate is actually an anime that I ended up watching twice this year, and can you believe it's been over a decade since being a mad scientist was so cool? I can't. I also can't believe that despite being a highly enjoyed and recommended show at the time, that only a handful of people in two moderately large Discord servers I frequent for watch-alongs and events have even seen it at all. Does no one have mandatory watch lists that are required watching before participating on the forum anymore? Like, what has this community become? I don't understand. Now, I might joke around, and I'm not saying that Steins Gate is niche or anything. I think it's on like the top 15 on Mal or something like that. I just found it very interesting that some newer anime watchers, I would say probably mostly in the 18 to mid 20-ish range, haven't picked this show up, so I'm putting it here because man, I love this show, and if you haven't seen it, you should really make the time to do yourself a favor and give it a watch. Now, I don't want to give too much away. It's probably best to go into Steins Gate as blind as possible, but I'll attempt to give a very quick synopsis rundown of at least some of the spoilers in episode 1, so don't worry too much. I'm not going to spoil a whole lot of things. Okabe is an electrical engineering student and self-proclaimed mad scientist living in Akihabara. As a founding member of the Future Gadgets Lab with his friends Daru and Mayuri, they spend their time inventing new creative devices to, quote, plunge the world into chaos, end quote, but what they often end up with, though, are devices of varying results and quality. One day, Okabe is attending a lecture from a doctor claiming to have unlocked the secrets to time travel, only to be then disappointed that the doctor seems to have plagiarized all his theories and writings from one John Teeter. And when confronting the doctor in front of everybody, he is dragged away by a woman he has never met before and questioned about why he was trying to talk to her about something. It seemed really urgent.
Beg pardon?
Okay, so what were you trying to tell me back there? Earlier, I mean.
Earlier?
He quickly realizes that he's talking to one Makase Kirizu and goes on a full, "aw sweet, a schizo" thread and runs away.
Look, I just wanted to ask you about
And you're a fool to expect I'll talk! Red alert. I've been cornered by an agent. Possibly a sleeper, certainly illustrious.
Who are you talking to?
Fear not, I'll give her the slip somehow. Perhaps...
It's not on.
it. And rest assured, when next we meet, I shan't be caught off guard so easily. Very well.
Wait, I...
But while during his daring escape, he hears a scream and actually ends up heading towards it only to find Kirizu dead and bleeding out on the floor.
Holy crap.
Later outside, he sends a text to Daru and finds himself in sort of desolate mirror world before snapping back to reality, only for him to turn around and look up to see what seems to be some sort of satellite to have collided with the building he was just in. Asking around, he finds out from his friends that he apparently didn't actually go to see the lecture because it was cancelled. Rather, they went to go see the satellite that had crashed into the building. They do a little bit of experimenting with what they know and decide to head to another seminar. As they enter, Okabe realizes something and checks Daru's phone. The text that he sent about the death arrived a week prior. And while coming to the realization that his message actually ended up going back in time by about a week, he walks into a lobby and sees a now very much alive Kurisu Makise. The one thing I will say about Steins Gate is that you should probably stick around at least till episode 12. I know it's a bit of a meme to say, "Oh no man, trust me bro, after episode 255 the show gets super good." But the show spends a very good amount of time doing character building and interactions amongst themselves, and it's absolutely worth it for the payoff. And I think when you're dealing with a show that tackles a subject like time travel, it's something that you should actually be spending a little bit of extra time doing beforehand. So you actually get a little bit of extra time to meet and, I guess, register the baseline of the characters that are going to be interacting around on the timeline. It also helps that, at least for me, I really enjoy the majority of these characters, and it's fun to watch them interacting with one another on their day-to-day lives. Oh, and also don't worry, you don't end up with like a Haruhi Endless 8 scenario with this one. In the sea of mediocre and not that great time travel plots, this one doesn't have much ambiguity, and leaves you actually feeling genuinely satisfied with the plot and the decisions that the characters make. They manage to have complex yet consistent mechanics within the world, and there really isn't a single ass-pull time travel shenanigan to just like hand wave a bunch of stuff away and say, "Oh no, everything's okay now." It's also one of those shows where, while yeah, the Japanese version has some very fun lines and some excellent delivery, I think the English dub is just as good in its own ways. The localization is pretty fun and very well done, and each of the voice actors sort of adding to the characters they're playing with great line delivery.
3.5 years now, yes? That's how long you and I have known one another?
Only if we're counting the year and some change of high school when we were in different classes and never said a word to each other.
Details, details.
Dealing with this nutcase?
They're the OTP in the fanfic I call my life.
We are not OTP.
Oh, so you know the jargon of the fanfic community.
Huh? Fess to be a scientist. You should be
I am decidedly not a scientist. I am a mad scientist.
Oh, for the love of... Could you be more of a Wesley?
Madam, next gin.
I said leave it the hell alone!
Oh, going too boldly, am I?
Yes, you...
Whoever was the ADR director did an absolutely amazing job on this. And while it may not be a very controversial thing to say that Steins Gate's English dub is good, I think it's pretty recognized that it is a good English dub. What might get me in a little bit of heat is saying that I actually prefer the English dub, especially when it comes down to accessibility, especially when you're watching with people who are not as accustomed to subtitles, such as your friends and friends' fiance. And speaking on the topic of accessibility, I'm pretty sure Steins Gate's one of the few things that I think is accessible on almost every single streaming platform, regardless of where you are. I'm pretty sure it's on Crunchyroll, Funimation, Hulu. I know it's on Netflix. And also, if you're like a collector of physical media, such as myself, or you're interested in getting into physical media, or even just looking for an anime or your first anime to buy, Steins Gate's a pretty good one to pick up, as the whole season is on Blu-ray for like $30 multiple times a year. It's a pretty good value, and I guess to sort of wrap everything up, I would really, really recommend giving this one a shot if you have never watched Steins Gate before. And if you have watched Steins Gate before, I would say, why don't you perhaps introduce it to a friend who perhaps has never watched it before, or just give it a rewatch. It still holds up very, very well. Finally, because for some reason 3 recommendations feels about the right spot for doing something like this, Venus Wars is a movie about war on Venus. Genius, right? It is the 21st century, and after gaining the ability to terraform Venus thanks to a comet crashing into it, humanity has been able to settle and thrive for about 4 generations now in 2 major nation states, Ishtar and Aphrodia. The 2 nations have been constantly engaging in increasing military escalations over the last little bit, and this is the reason why our first primary protagonist sort of shows up, who is a reporter from Earth named Susan Summers. She has decided to come to the capital of Aphrodia to get the inside scoop on what's actually going on, as Ishtar has been getting a little bit more aggressive as of late. She ends up going to a bar to meet up with a contact and get some inside information, as it seems journalists are perhaps not the most welcomed people on the planet at this moment in time. It's during this time at the bar that we're introduced to a sport that is being played on Venus. It's what I could describe only as some sort of roller derby, mono bike type racing league. And it's during this race that we're introduced to our secondary protagonist, Hero, who's a member of the Killer Commandos. It turns out that the inside tip Susan got at the bar happens to be actually correct, and surprise, Ishtar is now invading the capital, and Aphrodia seems to be just absolutely getting slapped around silly, trying to put up something that maybe resembles a fight. The race is quickly called off, as where they're racing devolves into a battleground, and the Killer Commandos begin to get their stuff together to beat feet, but Hero decides to be a bit of bold and brash and goes to check out what's actually going on, almost getting killed in this process because, as previously stated, it's an active conflict zone now. But this does pay off because he's been able to see that the main road has been absolutely destroyed, and they'll have to find a different way en route home. We then cut to see the conflict going on in the main capital city from Susan's perspective, with her having her camera out and getting some probably absolutely fantastic footage, while almost dying in the process. We then see Will, a member of the Killer Commandos who's driving a buggy with the other members in it, have to stop for Susan, and Susan ends up getting it, and our 2 parties have sort of met up. The conflict then comes to an end with the capital falling and coming under Ishtar control, entering into a full lockdown with military occupation and a full-on police state. Eventually, the members that make up the Killer Commandos get frustrated about how it feels like the Aphrodite's government is basically doing jack all, and they want to take matters into their own hands instead of just sitting around all day. And so they decide to launch an offensive on their home turf, only to end up finding themselves now, instead of just being politically apathetic punks, to being full-on combatants in active conflict. Now, I'll end there because I don't want to summarize the entire film. Again, this is more a recommendation for you to go maybe make some time and watch it, but overall, I enjoy this film. It's a visually great film to look at and watch with some excellent background work and some fantastic mechanical and character designs paired with some great animation for the most part. But I think that's kind of expected when you consider that it's Yoshikazu Yasuhiko, who is not only the original mangaka for Venus Wars the manga, but also the director and character designer and everything on this project as well. Probably best known for some of his involvement in the Mobile Suit Gundam franchise with the original Gundam, the cover artwork, as well as his work in Zeta Gundam as a character designer. Now, to also be fair, if I am forcibly made to remove my nostalgia goggles for a little bit, I'm going to be straight up with you guys. Some moments in this film are not great. There are times where they take live action film and animate over that live action film, and it's pretty jarring and pulls you out of the movie, but it's very rarely used, and it's, I think, a little bit closer to the back end of the film, which leads me to believe that it was either an aesthetic choice or a budgetary reason due to some of the other animation earlier in the film in contrast. And the only other thing that I'm kind of mixed on at times is the pacing of the film, and it feels sometimes not well paced and a little bit overwhelming with the amount of characters they just kind of throw at you. At times, it feels like this movie wanted to be something bigger, like a multi episode OVA, but were given a movie instead, or had a much bigger movie in mind originally and just kind of had this by the end. And that's not to knock it too much. I think overall, the entire thing as a whole is still very enjoyable to watch. The one last piece of advice I'll give about Venus Wars is that I would probably recommend watching the subtitled version with the original Japanese track. I'm not saying that the English dub is bad, it's how I originally watched the film, but from everything I have read online or seemed to research about it, it seems to gloss over a couple things that the Japanese track has. That being said, there is also a new English dub released by Sentai Filmworks, which I have not personally been able to listen to or watch myself, as my copy is the original Discotheque Blu ray release, and as such only has the 1993 Manga Entertainment dub. But people have been saying that this new Sentai English dub is actually quite good and much closer to the original Japanese script. So that's also a potential option as well if you're looking for accessibility or something like that. Overall, like I said, it's a personal favorite of mine and I rewatch it every now and then with people. And I'm sure some others who grew up watching anime late night on the Sci-Fi Channel at like 1 a.m. on weekends would probably also have fond memories of it. I would say definitely check it out. Well, that's it. That's the 3 anime that I watched in 2021 that I would want to recommend to you guys. What? Anime from 2021? Alright, yeah, geez, alright. Don't say I don't spoil you guys or anything, but here's some new anime from 2021 that I really enjoyed and would recommend. Here, and here. I also want to just take a couple moments to say thank you for everybody who managed to watch this far along. I really do appreciate it. And hey, maybe if this does well, I'll dig out some more VHS tapes from my closet and recommend them maybe 6 or 7 months from now. Here's to a hopeful 2022, everyone. Keep safe. Much love. Catra out.